We already approved their application.
I don't think we did. For the,
No, the other.
I'll call the meeting to order at 4:31. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Board of Trustees has referred 3 applications to us for recommendation based on applications for special use permits. As set forth in the agenda, the first item is to vote on our view of the Board of Trustees being lead agency for SEPA.
for all 3 applications.
For all 3 applications.
Do we consider them separately or together?
I'm going to make a motion to do them together. I move that the planning board has no objection for the Board of Trustees to serve as the lead agency for SEPA for 51 Pioneer, 1 Beaver Street, and 5138 Averill Road. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is 51 Pioneer Street. This is an application for transient rental. Normally, that's handled exclusively by the Zoning Board of Appeals, but this particular property is in the business district and it's mixed use, and the applicant wishes to have that switched to a single-family dwelling and then use portion of the dwelling as transient rental. So the issue for the special use permit before the trustees is whether to change the structure from a mixed use occupancy to a single family dwelling.
I mean, it's actually a 2-family dwelling,
Oh,
which
two-family
is
dwelling?
established as a kitchen downstairs.
But it wasn't designated that. I mean, it was, prior to that, it was commercial space.
Yes, right. It's
And
mixed.
prior to the
retail.
residential, it was commercial space. Yeah. So it's my understanding that they have been operating it as a transient rental.
I don't know.
It looks like that.
I've been walking by it,
Yeah.
because I walk by it every day.
And from the letter
It's been
from
transient
the
license.
Art Association,
Yeah.
it sounds like that's what they've been using it
So I
for.
don't know if they have a special use permit already that you have to apply for every year, but it
But
has been operated as a transient.
But doesn't she say in her letter that sometimes they're going to use it as
Right.
a transient rental property, and sometimes it's going to be a family, let's all go to Cooperstown place?
But it's only, I think the law only exempts, twice a year that you can rent it without needing a special use permit.
our function today,
Could be wrong.
with respect to the application, is to recommend, give the trustees a recommendation. And we're, for all of the applications today, to go through a list set forth in section 316C for the factors to be considered. But 316C states in its preamble that each board that looks at this should look at it as applicable to their respective jurisdictions. This board has no jurisdiction over transient rentals.
Right.
And has no jurisdiction for site plans for 2-family dwelling. Therefore, we have no jurisdiction, anything set forth in this list.
Then why are we looking at it?
There was a trustee sent it.
Okay. Is it parking or setbacks or anything like that?
Parking is in transient rentals is determined by the ZBA.
Specific to transient rentals, okay.
Yes.
Setbacks?
And one thing that we might look at, what we precluded from, is the need to make the change. However, need in 316C1, the proposed use with the exception of home occupations, accessory dwelling units, and short-term rentals must be demonstrated. Therefore, need is no longer a factor.
Right.
So I don't think I see anything for us to review, unless someone sees differently.
Is the planning board expected to advise on converting it from a retail into a two-family dwelling, that change of status? Do we make recommendations?
That's use. It doesn't look like use is even.
I know that the ZBA handles special permits for transient rentals.
Yeah, but our recommendation is based on those matters only applicable to the planning board's jurisdiction, which would be site plan review or parking other than for transient rentals.
Vehicular access and circulation.
That's the ZBA's responsibility.
Okay. So is this being bumped to the ZBA as well?
Yes,
Okay,
this also went to the ZBA.
okay.
So if someone has a recommendation to make to the trustees on this, I'd like to hear it.
And we can't say in terms of density of use or intensity of use.
That's
We don't have any,
not,
is
there's,
that within our purview?
yeah,
Okay,
there's, not the way I read the statute.
okay. Because that would be a concern of mine is in, the intensity of use given the size of the off-street parking.
But that's solely within the ZBA's.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. So then,
So I move that the planning board takes no position. Yeah,
Second that.
okay,
please, guys, second. All in favor?
all right.
All right.
So for reviewing all of these as set forth in zoning law 316C, which is what the agenda says, is this going to be applicable to all of them?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
No, I'm kidding, sorry.
Is there any present for One Beaver?
Yes,
Good.
hi,
Can you just say your name so we could have it for the record?
sure. Kendra Pierce-Capero, Vice President of Facilities for Bassett Health Care Network. And I also have Bill Rokachowski with me, our architect for the project, and Amy Williams.
Do you have business cards? So we just get this, you have the spelling?
I can give you a card.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And then I also have Scott Craven with us, who's our landscape architect. Bill? Welcome.
There's a presentation board, so I'm going to just spot.
No, that's right. Well, it's usually right, oh, for the audience too, yeah, they'll watch.
This is the existing structure here, illustrated in these 4 photos here. It's at 1 Beaver Street, known as the Harrison House. And existing 2-story structure, white clapboard mostly. It does have some white shingle on it, and some stone at the base of the building and on the chimneys. And our task that's been assigned to us is to turn this into a daycare. Right, and so we looked at the program requirements for that, working with Amy, and she's going to be instrumental in the operation of it. And we came up with some floor plan solutions that require a minor addition on the front of the building in the area that during the original construction of the building was a garage. It's being converted into usable space. It's used as office space right now. So we're proposing a minor 1-story addition right in front of that garage, projecting out about 8 feet to provide an entryway. So for drop off and arrival, facing the street. And then we also have a larger addition in the back that is 2 stories and projects out from the back of the building about 16 feet, plus or minus. And that will allow us to provide the adequate space to accommodate the program for the daycare function. We will be using both levels of the building. The building's going to become a different occupancy. It's going to be an institutional full class 4 or / educational occupancy. It's going to be fully sprinklered now, and we're adding 2 fire exit stairs. So we have 2 means of egress from the upper level of the building. And all of the younger kids will be down on the first floor and have direct access to the outside. Anybody below 36 months in age, needs to have the space where they can direct egress directly to the outside, so that will be provided for as well as staff support spaces and offices, et cetera, within the building. So that's the original look of the building.
I noticed the application also mentions that there'll be an infirmary for kids who are sick.
Yes, there will be a room where children who are ill can be housed until they are available for pickup. Yep. And that's something relatively new, I think.
Yes, that's what we're
as far as daycare operation. So I think we might be a guinea pig on exactly how that gets set up. This is a larger rendering of the front elevation of the building. And right here on this side, you can see our proposed new addition for the entry. What we've done is we're proposing to take the existing roof pitch and just extend it out farther, about 8 feet. So that's the existing roof line is coming out just about 8 feet farther towards the street. We have the entry door there with a gable over the top of it, a couple of French doors marking the entry, and then to bring some natural light into the spaces upstairs that are functional, we're proposing to add 3 dormers on that roof to kind of blend in with the existing architecture and existing residential neighborhood, which everybody knows is lovely up there, that residential street.
So have you taken this to HPARB yet, just to find
Yes.
information?
We were there last week.
Okay.
And all our materials are going to be in keeping with the existing structure, matching the existing as much as possible. We will have some newer materials, some fiberboard cement siding as opposed to wood siding.
It doesn't look at all like the federal building that's in the picture currently. So it doesn't look like the federal, I'm sorry, that's not my purview, but I'm a preservationist. It doesn't look like the federal style building at all, so I'm just remarking on that.
And we've also got some elevations for each side, illustrating not only our addition to the front, but our addition to the back, which you can see right here. And front elevation, street facing elevation is right here.
So we actually don't have anything to do with the visual, unfortunately, but, so in terms of this, the parking and
And here's a site plan. We've got our civil engineer who's been working on this with us, and he can probably add some more detail if needed. But Beaver Street is up here in this plan. The area we're proposing for the new front entry is right here, and we're displacing 3 angled parking spaces right there. We're proposing to replace them up along here, provide drop-off parking. The existing entries off of Beaver Street remain in the exact same location, and the rest of the parking configuration
that's
remains the
that's
same.
already there, yeah.
Yeah, that's already there. This is the structure right here.
The only site component I'd like to add is there's going to be a daycare playground area in the middle, and we're going to provide fencing to replicate what you have throughout your town. So there'll be an enclosed area for the kids on 3 sides, and then there'll be wrought iron, two swing gates to open for snow plowing and emergency egress. Most of the time, those gates would be drawn closed, and then you have a secure location for the kids to come in. And we're still finalizing the playground design, which is 2 or 3 pieces of playground equipment. It's a concrete walk, and the safety surfacing that the playground is built on. It's not bright rubber. It's not bright colored rubber. It's not the loose wood chips, it's actually artificial turfs, and it looks like the lawn, so our goal is to blend it into the environment, so.
Is that required for playgrounds now? Because I thought they got rid of artificial turf.
No, absolutely, you need a safety, it's all based on fall heights, so around each piece of playground equipment, you need to have an alternative method, there's different methods to,
As opposed to grass.
It's grass, yeah, grass won't meet the fall height requirement, so it's artificial turf with some rubber sand infill and a pad, and it lasts a long time, and we think it fits the site well. So we're finalizing those details.
Okay.
Any questions?
Okay, I was here when we approved that parking design and in and out and the circulation and so forth. Those parking spaces were for people either, I believe primarily for people working in Harrison House. Is that, so who is gonna be parking there in the future? Because the kids aren't driving their cars to nursery school. And being dropped off. So what is the plan of best for that parking, and who's, how is it gonna be used?
Yep, so this lot is primarily, with the exception of these spaces here, this lot is primarily what we call doctor parking. So there are some people in this building who are actually being relocated out of the building who would park here, possibly. A lot of people still get shuttled in, we still have our shuttles, but this is primarily doctor parking that we consider. And then this I believe was part of a special use permit. I don't know how, it was many years ago. But there's handicap parking here, and there's also parking designated, so we have our outpatient dialysis building that's right across the street here, and that's designated for right there. That will remain. All of this will remain the same. The only thing we're doing is adding these spaces here for drop-off for daycare.
So the
5 spaces.
so the children will be not dropped off at the door, but will be walking through how will they get?
So people will still enter this way
Yeah.
like they normally do now. So they will have to come around here, and then they will park here, get out, there's a sidewalk here, and then they'll go into the building, into the central right here. And then,
That gray line is a sidewalk.
Yes,
yes.
My
That's a
concern
sidewalk.
was having little kids walking around that were in a parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay,
Nope.
all right.
And then they'll, back out and leave the same way that people go out now.
Okay.
This is just for Bassett employees and their
Yes.
families?
Yes.
Have the doctors been parking there already?
You can just walk.
Did they not let me park there?
No, I walk. So I don't,
Yes,
it's a
that
mystery
is
to me.
where, that the majority of parking there is where doctors live.
Oh.
Between that and that's all.
Okay.
Do you have a separate site plan?
Yes, I didn't bring it with me, but I can share with the board.
Well, at some point, we'll have to look at it, do the site plan review.
We get it in the mail tomorrow.
Yeah, because it doesn't have the setback, we don't have the setbacks or anything.
And there was a recent amendment to the zoning law with respect to site plans. Section 300-43. Now has a list of items that have to be included. So before you send it in, please check to make sure that all those items are with the application.
do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because we can't make any determinations based on, without a site plan.
So, section 370, C is sets forth requirements for special permits to go to the trustees. And the portion relevant to us is the involved zoning boards, including us, will transmit a recommendation. And each recommendation should address 4 items: the process for additional required reviews, a determination of whether the application is complete for these reviews, need for a consultant or consultants to evaluate the proposed uses, and our evaluation of the proposed use and consideration of the criteria for special use permits, which we have printed out. So we're not yet ready to review a site plan. The application is certainly not complete.
Mr. Chairman, could I interrupt? I'm Matt Hamlin, I represent Bassett Healthcare Network.
Sure.
The applicant fully intends on, after the special use permit process is completed, to come back before this
Oh,
board.
that's, I'm not being critical.
Yeah.
I'm just going through this list.
Yes.
We know, yeah.
Okay,
I fully expect that we're gonna get it.
right.
But I just have to go through this list for tonight based
It's
on.
fine for the recommendations to
Yes, the
the board of
recommendations.
trustees. Okay, fine.
And until we see the site plan, it's hard to know what consultants might be required. Although I really, at present, don't see a need for consultants, except perhaps with respect to lighting, if there's going to be additional downward-facing lighting on the site plan. So let's take up the criteria. The first is need.
But we don't determine need. I mean, I think,
I think there is a need for childcare.
oh my gosh, yes, I didn't know if that was under our purview.
Well, since we do a site plan, then we look at everything.
There is a huge need for childcare in the county and the community.
Got another question. The youngest children will be what age that will be going to this facility?
It will start at 6 weeks.
Infants,
Okay.
yeah.
So you will be dealing with people coming with car carriers and maybe even, I don't know, strollers, or car seats and all of it. Okay, as in,
Yeah, but as
the car seats storage, yeah. As it, but I guess when I saw, how wide are those parking spaces for drop-off? Because my experience has been you have to open the doors wide up to get children out of car seats and parents leaning in cars and stuff. And are you going to be bumping doors? And in other words, is there a consideration of having a wider parking space than is normal, where people can squeeze in and out, like at, Clark Center or whatever, where an adult can get in and out of a car without having it totally wide open? But a mother reaching into the back seat and trying to pull out a car seat with seat belts and all that sort of stuff, has to have the doors wide open. See what you understand? So I'm just thinking about practicality, and when you plan maybe having a fewer places to pull in, but have that space, wider space, because you may have minivans where people go in and out of it's almost, I'm not saying the same width of handicap access, van accessible, no, not that, but believe me, it was always a pain for me getting our kids in and out of the back seats of cars and leaning way in and if somebody pulls in behind you, then, it's really awkward. So
Richard, I think there are standards for parking space widths in the zoning law. I don't know,
But that's
you're making
that's the width that must be,
but that is the width we've applied to Price Chopper, to anywhere else, to the gym, so this
But that's
is,
a minimum.
but this is not you're not asking them to change their site plan for this, because we
Well,
don't
I'm
do
just
that
saying,
for Price
consider
Chopper.
wider spaces. Then
But if
would
we
be-
set a
Wider
precedent
than
for
the
something
law
like this.
allows, is what I'm saying, wider than the law says that it must be 8 feet wide or
9
something.
feet. 9 feet.
And I'm wondering whether because this is specifically for people coming in and it's a drop-off zone, it's not a parking space, see?
Richard, it's an interesting point, but I think we could wait until we have a site plan. to
Okay,
discuss
but
it.
I'm saying, they might think of, this is not a bad idea, because I mean, but.
It's a point well taken.
If I could just make as a new grandfather, I've never watched people for a long time, and I worked at the school. The idea of taking the entire car seat out is sort of antiquated.
Yeah.
The carry thing, I guess,
Well,
is what, snapped into what's in there, and you end up taking something that's probably not much bigger, if at all, than a bag of groceries.
In the interest of time, I'm gonna suggest that we debate the,
well, I
Child carriers
just made my
afterward.
point. I mean, I think they've heard it, and the law doesn't say you must have it wider than the normal one.
If we can,
I think it's a great point.
What?
I think it's a great point.
it's a great point, but we should address that,
once we have a
once we
site
have a
plan.
site plan.
And then we will see the dimensions of the parking spaces and all of that. All right. I don't have any questions until I really see a site plan on that sort of thing, so if you wanted to go through the list of 366.
Okay, adjacent land uses.
The adjacent parcels are all,
Well, that's it.
it's all the, yes, it's all the same business. So
So
that's,
I don't think that's a consideration to worry about.
no,
Location and size of use, I don't think that's a problem.
I don't think it is either.
Location, nature, and size of buildings. I don't see that as an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's doubling the size of the footprint, is that right? Is it close to doubling the size?
It's probably about, let's say, 5% increase in footprint size.
Okay. Which will change the visual nature, but again, that's not our purview, so. And they certainly won't hinder or discourage the development of the adjacent parcels.
The density of development,
It's not changing the amount of open space.
the vehicular access and circulation. We'll see that when we have the site plan.
Right, but the circulation pattern isn't going to change,
Yeah.
so.
Will the center be used when employees are on shift?
24/7 or?
Yeah, and
We're
then,
not currently planning 24/7 at this time.
Okay.
We're planning set 2 shifts, right?
It'll be dictated by the use needed.
Yeah.
So if it's,
Just thinking of the night staff.
that's certainly an option, but we'll kind of wait and see what the demand is and what the needs are.
Yeah.
And then we can go.
do you currently envision employees coming right before their shift, or is there going to be a schedule set up? Or,
No, it would be tied to their work schedule. So it will be typically tied to the start of first shift or something like that, but it won't, they don't have to come at a certain time.
pedestrian circulation?
The sidewalks are already there, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
parking is taken care of. The layout,
Okay.
drainage, facilities and erosion control.
Not increasing, well, you're increasing a little bit of the impervious structure just with the roof. But I'm assuming there is a stormwater management plan already in place for the space because of, it's in the riparian protection district. So I'm assuming there are already stormwater drains and runoff for that.
Yes.
But those will be on the site plan, I'm assuming. Okay.
And landscaping.
Will be on the site
It'll be on
plan.
the site plan. Water and sewer.
Be on the site plan.
Emergency access. I assume you have that already.
Yeah.
And lighting. We'll see the lighting on the site plan, and also in the site plan, if you can specify, if you're going to be putting in new lights, if you just specify the type of lighting you're using,
Dark sky is in the,
Dark
dark
sky,
sky
yeah.
is required.
how much illumination will be in protecting the surrounding area from unnecessary light.
You guys are Harrison House. Do you know how much lower that is than the street?
No.
I mean, it is a downhill pit, right?
Is it?
Minimal,
It is, not a lot.
Behind
From
it,
a site
yeah.
perspective, it drains from the road towards the back of the site.
Which is the river, yeah.
Yeah, I just drove through it.
but the parking lot is pitched so that the backside of the parking lot
Catches
comes
the water.
Right.
a hard surface to the stormwater management.
Yeah, I'm more talking about lights that are low for entry, such as ones on Chestnut Street, would not impinge on any place across the street.
You got it, yeah.
It's the only place that people live.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's existing lights out there, what do you say about a 12-foot?
I think so, the typical lights that we have around the campus.
So we might be relocating one or two, but to answer your question, we will provide a photometrics plan with the property that's being used or relocated.
Open this up for discussion.
There's no noise, odor, and other irritants. In fiscal considerations. Yeah, I mean, as long as we can see a site plan, I think a lot of our questions will be answered.
And in terms of a recommendation, I'm in favor of recommending this to,
I'd make a motion to do that, to recommend that the board consider this the special use permit for this.
I'd like to add to that motion that we can't at this point make recommendations about possible consultants until we see the site plan, so that the trustees should be aware of that when they make their decision on the special use permit.
Okay.
So take the motion that way?
Yes, I would make that motion as amended.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. I don't know where the light switch is. Oh, there.
Or do they turn off everything?
Let's wait till he focuses. Don't look at him until he focuses, because noise makes me sick.
We brought one by seven.
Okay,
Kind of like,
look at 5138 Apple Road.
what's that?
The Apple Road project. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm seeing.
So Matt Hamlin, representing the Templeton Foundation, the applicant. We were here almost a year ago. And we went through the recommendation process. In fact, we had some pretty good recommendations. I appreciate the kind of, I was a board member of the two entrances and exits in the lot. I think all of the recommendations as they were incorporated into these plans, these preliminary plans. So I have with me the design team. We have the architect Joe Prime, the architect of Syracuse, Scott Freeman, Captain Jared Freeman, landscape architect, Rudy Zonoff, principal of RZ Engineering, civil engineer regarding stormwater drainage and whatnot. We have Josh Edmonds, who is going to be, he's a consultant at this point, but hopefully will be the general contractor for the project. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joe and Scott to run through the plan. There are some things that happened since last year. We all realized we cut some trees to do some geotesting and whatnot. That was completed, and actually was very helpful in the design of the site and what we're proposing. As far as the SWIP, none was required by the DEC because of the minimal disturbance of the soil on the site. So that was not required. You can see that in the highlights of the plans. Also, the owner, despite not being required to have a SWIP and periodic inspections, the owner instituted an inspection regime just as if we had a filed SWIP with the DEC. So this site has been continuously monitored in accordance with the regulations and inspected and agreed on. Representatives of Mr. Zona's firm, I think every 2 weeks. So, yeah, monthly. So we're maintaining site review and inspection for the benefit of the community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over.
I just have one question first. The letter that you sent to Mayor Chilipon about the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yes, yes. So we are, let me address that.
Yes,
So we are, during our site investigation recently, very recently, think it's just around the time we filed the special use permit application, the owner had retained a wetlands biologist. And the investigation before it took place indicated there were no wetlands on the property at all. None was mapped on the DEC mapping, on the national wetlands map. So therefore, the DEC doesn't have jurisdiction. But we, again, went over and above and beyond for due diligence purposes. It was a forested area, as we all know. Our wetlands biologist discovered wetland soil. There was some sitting water and some wetland plants. Not a lot, but there were some in the area which is going to be developed, supposed to be developed, in the 56-acre tract. With that, we now have reached out, will be reaching out shortly to the Army Corps of Engineers to ask them to make a finding of declined jurisdiction over this particular small wetland. And hopefully they will do that under the recent standards and federal regulations, because there's no continuous flowing water from the site down the hill into the sediment pond across the Willow Road. If they decline and do not require a permit, then we'd like to proceed with the project. If they require a permit, then we're going to have to look at that issue. So that's where we stand. The ask of the Army Corps has yet to be made. Our wetlands biologist is working on that application as we speak.
I'm not familiar with how the Corps operates, or tell me that before. Will a permit possibly require changes?
Possibly.
Too early to tell.
Can you tell?
TBD. We're
Okay.
hoping under the new rule that came out after a 2022 Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court decision, the wetlands. Under the Clean Water Act of 1970 or 72, they had to change the rule because of that ruling about their jurisdiction. We believe, our expert believes that yes, we have to make the request because we discovered this small wetland, but she believes that Army Corps of Engineer in due course, could take a few months, 6, will decline to exercise jurisdiction, then no permit is required.
Where is the wetland on?
The one for our project, there are
No,
wetlands.
the one that you're concerned about.
Yeah, I believe it's in, go ahead.
It's about, right, where we're planning to put the,
Wet pond.
the pond.
Okay.
So, and, and it kind of just runs along here, is that correct, guys? Yeah,
Okay.
So, yeah, it's pretty close to the road. So if we had to redesign something, it would be minimal redesign, but,
I think you can get a permit up to a half an acre, which would allow us to do pretty much the things we end up with.
Kind of ironic,
If we.
kind of ironic, the wetland is right where we're gonna put a wet pond.
Right.
for drainage.
But it's a very
pond.
different ecology. Yeah.
we're making a wetland, so.
Well,
So
you're
we'll see
making a
what they
pond,
say.
which is different from wetland.
So you're starting with questions that are beyond my capabilities, so I'm gonna turn it over to the experts. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, it was.
Okay, yeah, so our project, as you know, this is the village, and, we're here Main Street, up April Road. This is the entire, property, that is owned by by Bassett. And, so we just want to kind of give you this slide to kind of show where it all is, in the village. And then I'll get Scott to talk a little bit
Can
more.
you go back just one, Joe? I think a good starting point might be, this is the lower campus, this is the housing, that's the detention facility, this is the water tower, this is the top of the mountain, this is the lake, this is the village. So when one looks up the hill from this area, you're gonna see trees and mountaintop. You will not see the mountaintop, the water tower, water tank. We did the one right down the road in Springbrook, Rudy and I, and there's actually an option. You can go vertical with your water tank, or you can go with the wide, I don't know what you call it, pancake, ladder option. I mean, the water tank will not be seen from the village. Just want to open up.
The water tank we're doing will meet the code, which means it's gonna be under 30 feet.
Exactly, so we don't want to ask for any variance.
Your page 6 is very helpful in that regard. It
Yes.
shows the elevation of this.
Yes, I just wanted to show you the plan first,
Well,
because,
that's very excellent.
because we understand, your aesthetics and visuals is a big thing. So that's where we are. And the other thing I want to do on this plan is illustrate that it's one project, but there's a housing portion, which is private, asset working on that, and then there's the municipal component, which is the water tower. So there'll be two separate, it's one project for purposes of secret, you don't want to do segmentation, but it's going to be two sets of drawings, but it's going to be under the construction of one person building it. So I just wanted to point that out, because there's a municipal review for the water tank once that's designed. So I also want to give you an update. Relative to a year ago, we came in, we drew this in 2 dimensions. We drew a road, we drew a basin, and actually it was a road coming in one way. Over the course of the year, we met with the fire department, we walked there with Bob Zelinski and Kendra, and we figured out what the needs were. So the fire department said, we want a loop for safety purposes, so we have a loop. Fire department said we want a fire hydrant on one end and the other end, and they'll be off of a public right of way. So the public right of way will be along Anvil Road, and then there'll be public access to those fire hydrants. So the Cooperstown Fire Department will have full access and control of those. The water department will have a municipal easement that goes up the hill to the water tower, which is right there. This has been 95% designed, and I'll let Rudy get into that. So we are ready to submit a SWIP. We have our engineer has all the drainage calculations. That's ready to be reviewed. There's a lot of time and effort Mr. Zone put into that. I'll let him talk about the basin, but I will say the blue, it's a wet pond, which means it's wet. It has standing water in it. In August, what's that gonna look like? It's gonna be standing water. Kendra and Bob said they want us to look really nice, so we're gonna put several aerators in there to keep the water going. It'll, make some noise, break up the mosquitoes, encourage fish, and, just a nice aquatic environment. During a heavy rainfall event, this thing's gonna fill up, and it's gonna overflow the same way it does now. I'll let Rudy get into that a little more. The components of the facility are a playground and a shelter, so people can gather at the north end. It'll be a fenced-in little area for kids to play. A shelter for shade for, we get a lot of rain, that type of thing. Then we have we have 2 other shelters for this group of townhomes can go to an outdoor shelter here, and this group of townhomes can go to a shelter here. We have sidewalks from the parking to the facilities, parking from, front door parking. And then we have a waste enclosure here, which we presented architecturally. It's going to resemble the buildings. It's not just going to be chain link fence. It's going to be, what's going to be, Joe? We'll talk about it.
Well, it's just gonna be flat, wood siding.
Next to building. So we're going to
We have some visuals towards the
get
end.
to that later. And then that's really about it on this one.
Another one,
What's the other one?
The parking.
trash.
Oh, right, yeah, that's location, trash location B. There's A, so truck comes in, pulls in, loads and unloads, loops around, goes down the hill. Go to the next slide.
Before,
Yeah,
one other thing, we have the parking spaces.
Yeah, I thought we had more slides, so I just want to talk about we have the community for people that go hiking. We're gonna have that right in front of the gate. We're gonna provide 5 parking spaces for the community to use to alleviate what's going on over here. So there'll be some parking here, they can park their car and go on the hill. I did want to talk about utilities real quick, Joe, and screening. So this is adjacent property here. Here's the garage at the end of the block. So what we've done here is we've provided a lower screening here, and we have a second layer of screening here. So we're gonna have lower plants and shrubs here, and we're gonna have a double row of evergreens here. So that's gonna help mitigate the visual impact of this building. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but a front yard setback is probably somewhere in here. Our building is well beyond that. It's above and beyond the front yard setback. So we'll talk about utilities real quick. The Bassett, we had 2 options, overhead, electric, and underground. We think it's more aesthetic to go underground. So we're working with NICEAG to run underground here, but we need the power to go up the hill. So that's gonna be worked on. Sanitary, it's gravity, comes out, comes into a pipe, comes down the hill. The nearest gravity manhole is down here somewhere, right, Bob? So we have a municipal right-of-way gravity line that we have to connect into. We're not gonna tap into the force main private line that's here. We will have, so this is private on-site, and then we're gonna do a sewer line extension and connect it. So that's stormwater Rudy's gonna talk about. We got sanitary covered, water Rudy's gonna explain, power we explain. So that's really about it, Joe, for now. Yeah.
I just realized this PowerPoint presentation is not the same as the compared one.
Just one point of clarification, this is being submitted, it will be submitted as a single action, one site plan, which will incorporate the tower and the housing facility.
Okay.
All right, so the buildings, we have an apartment building with 24 apartments. We have 8 2 bedrooms per floor, so that's 16, and then 8 1 bedrooms for the building. That comes out to 16 2 bedrooms and 8 1 bedrooms. So you got 24 units on this floor, or in this building. It's only a 2-story building. Main entrances in the center. We have a communicating stair. We have mainly like public utilities areas, a mail room, and then we have a stair on both ends for egress. So those will be rated stairs. The middle stair won't be rated, and it'll be more of a communicating stair. So here's our elevations, and this mainly, when we did this slide mainly for each part, and to make sure, and you guys, that we are not exceeding the 30 feet height of the building that goes to the center of the sloped roof. We have chimneys, but they're less than 10%, so in the zoning, they wouldn't be counted. So all of our, the apartment buildings is 28 feet to the center, so the height is considered 28 feet. We are planning on having, the exterior siding will be a lap siding, the clapboard siding, will be like an LP smart side. It's wood, it's an engineered wood product. So that's what we're planning on doing. The trim and fascia will be the same type of trim, smart side trim, or we may be using like an AZAC, which is a material that's a little bit better, against water. It's a PVC, but that wouldn't be for the main building. Just areas down by the water table. The roofing will be an architectural asphalt shingle. Again, we brought those samples to H Park and showed them. The windows will be mostly double hung. We have some transoms. We have a couple of octagonal. So in another slide, we're going to talk about passive house design. We decided to make these buildings as energy efficient as possible. When we first came to you, we talked about doing a geothermal system. That was one of the things that we were going to go and get geotechnical information to design that system. Well, once we decided to go passive house, which is really doing way better than the code, making these buildings much more tighter, much more well insulated. You go from New York State code would require R38, in the roof. We're going to have R80. So you're not going to use enough energy to warrant doing a geothermal system. So we took that out of the project because there's not needed. We're going above and beyond the code to make this a passive house.
So what energy source will you use?
It'll all be electric.
Okay.
Everything will be an electric,
That's what I thought, yeah.
air heat pumps, so the heat pumps. And the windows, I brought it up, it's a Yarrow, it's a triple pane, it's not a double pane, it'll be a triple pane. So all the doors and the windows will not be your normal door and window, it'll be much more energy efficient. And Josh Edmonds with Simple Integrity. He's done quite a few buildings here in Cooperstown, and he's our guy. So if you have any specific passive house questions, he's the expert and can answer those. So the elevations haven't changed. We've showed you this back in January. The renderings, we kind of looked at Fernley over, and we thought that was a good, simple colonial design. And so we've kind of used that as our guide to keeping it very simple and simple lines, and very few materials. We're not changing materials constantly, stone and brick. It's just it's a very simple design that Bassett wanted to maintain. So this is, we have 2 clusters of townhomes. This is the floor plan for the townhomes. There'll be two bedroom, you'll have 4 2-bedroom units per cluster and 2 3-bedroom units per cluster. This is the first floor here. These are the 2 bedrooms. The 3 bedrooms are in the back, and the reason we did that was to provide for handicap accessible bedrooms and bathrooms in the 2 in the back. So these will have all their bedrooms upstairs, so they won't be handicap accessible. But so 2 of the 6 in each cluster will have a handicap accessible bedroom, primary bedroom,
On the ground
and
floor.
a
Okay.
bathroom. So, and those will be on grade. So each one will have a little patio in the back. We don't plan any screening back there, but we were just thinking like a concrete patio for outside each apartment, each time.
And again, the handicap parking for those units that are accessible is where?
We have handicap parking.
It's on the site plan.
It's on the site plan.
It meets ADA, it'll be 2% asphalt stalls flush with concrete right in front. You zoom in.
Right in front of the actual.
Yeah, very close, right at the central block.
So right here, if you can look, there's a striped area. So you end up with 2 parking spaces per cluster that'll be handicap
So
accessible.
the drive aisle will be centered right on the central walk that Joe's
Right.
designed, so if somebody stops by with food or delivery, they could use that space.
I'm thinking more of transporting a wheelchair,
Oh, it's gonna be flush.
having pushed.
It'll all be flush and below, it'll all be ADA compliant, 2 to 5% max.
It's just the furthest back.
Any other questions about that, or?
No, I mean, having had to push my dad all over the place in the last month or so. It can be heavy, and to have the handicaps the furthest from the handicap parking space is in inclement weather, snow, ice, all of that.
So the
It's
way-
not ideal, so
So
for
the
somebody
way-
in that position.
There is a reason for that, and it's because of the grade. So these kind of stick out of the grade, because there is a slight incline here, but these end up being flush with the grade. And so that way they don't have a step to go up. But again, you're gonna be pushing this should be really shown with markings here for the handicap. This was earlier rendering. So that's kind of why we did it that way.
Right, no, I understand why, it's just hit home recently,
Oh,
that how hard it is to push somebody in a wheelchair, agree.
Do you also have any apartments, handicap accessible apartments with wider doors?
so by code, New York State code requires that all of the units there that are accessible, meaning on the first floor, have to be adaptable.
Universal
So-
design, or universal design? or-
Universal design, so the only thing really, bathrooms are big enough. We have to put blocking in the walls for the guardrails and grab bars, guardrails, the grab bars.
They're also guardrails.
Yeah. So, but they won't be, when you walk in, it won't look like it, it'll just be bigger. Upstairs, since there's no elevator here, we're not required to put in an elevator, but they don't need to be accessible.
But the first floor apartments are
All
adaptable,
100%.
so the doors are already wide enough.
Yeah, they'll all be 36-inch doors
Okay.
for everything, really. Here's the elevations for the townhomes. Again, the height is 26 feet, so it's a little bit shorter than the apartments, but they're well under the 30-foot max. Again, we're using the same exact types of siding and trim, and so these are going to kind of look, they're going to go with them, they're going to have very similar window patterns, and as you can see, this end up looks a little bit different than the apartment buildings. They'll have the same shingles and the same roof shingles and the same chimney design. So here's some of the architectural elements that we've been talking about. Again, an LP smart side, siding and trim boards, asphalt architectural roof shingles, the doors and the windows will be the triple pane. So those are just examples of all of those. The site elements that Scott was talking about. Here we have the playground. And, just a little bit ago, he was talking about the turf for the grounds of the playground. We're not sure about what we're doing here yet, right? We haven't gotten there yet. But here's an example of a playground we may be doing. But this is certified wood shavings or whatever we call it. State engineered mulch, mulch. Here are the site lights that we plan on adding will go with what we're already doing here in the village. Basically, they're talking about trying to use that same fixture so they can use the same light bulbs and all the things. The pavilion we planned, here's an example of what we plan to do for there's 3 pavilions. One is going to be a little bit bigger one, probably about this size here, for the play area, and then the other 2, which we're talking about gazebos, but we think we want them just more open instead of enclosed, like a gazebo would be typically. So that's why we're kind of going with all, just 2 smaller pavilions and one a little bit bigger in the play area. The fence we're looking at is going to be a wrought iron looking fence. It could be aluminum. We're thinking about going with an aluminum one that looks just like a wrought iron. There's a lot of them out there now. But right, we're not sure about that. We haven't convinced Bob to get out of the wrought iron fence. Like that. Dumpster and recyclable enclosures are just going to be a wood that will basically go with what we're doing. Painted white, we're having all white trim, so we just want that to go with.
Have you made any plans for like a bicycle shelter or bike storage? Because there doesn't seem to be much storage in the apartments for things like that.
So we don't have one for the townhomes. They have a covered, like at Fernley Over, this is a covered little porch here, and
Right.
each one have a covered little porch.
Right.
So
I was thinking the apartments more than the townhomes, yeah.
So right now, we have these rooms here.
Oh, that's a room, okay.
Yep, that we were thinking, we're gonna have mechanicals in there, but we're gonna provide an area there for bikes.
Another option would be a pavilion idea just for bikes, but just with the bike racks underneath it.
An exterior like a pavilion.
Exactly, yeah. So that's just another option that.
Yeah, we'll consider that.
I was gonna say, I know Josh is a big cyclist, so, but no, it would just.
Yeah.
if it's better than hauling them into the apartments.
Yeah, no, we're definitely trying to get the stuff that we need like back on the first floor here. And that's what these rooms
Yeah.
mainly are gonna be for. So as I was talking about energy efficiency, we're gonna use the passive house. Josh, want to talk a little bit about what that means?
Talk to us before about passive housing.
I have.
You're probably preaching to the choir.
Yeah, Cooperstown's becoming more familiar with passive housing in a lot of areas in the country, but we're really excited that the Templeton Bassett are moving forward with this entire project as passive house certified. That's a pretty big step, but there's a lot of buildings up there, and so it's a pretty big impact. Passive house is really neat because you're looking at about a 90% reduction in the energy needed to heat and cool these buildings, as well as you can provide much higher indoor air quality. That became a much bigger item when COVID rolled through, and so many people started paying attention to things like that. And so passive house kind of starts to hit a lot of those features and facets as they look at reducing energy, air tightness, better daylighting, ventilation, and some of those strategies. And so it'll lead for a really nice building and a great place for people to live.
Do you have any questions about the passive house?
No.
Okay. And that was the wrong pie chart. Yeah, you're supposed to have a section, weren't you? Okay, so I downloaded the wrong one there.
We don't have some of it here. I mean, it's. And there will be electric vehicle charging stations because that's the detailed info is here. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is. So the next, so this was the correct presentation. We didn't get a chance to talk about the section through the water tower, and that should be in your packet there. Scott, you want to bring that up? Or?
Yeah, basically the same, what was presented earlier was, here's the water tower. You can see that. Here's the lake over here, up the hill, mountaintop, down the hill a little bit, water tower. Here's our proposed facilities, and in that little box is this. So what you have there is the right-of-way, Apple Road, and then we're showing overhead, but we're gonna put that electric underground, and then we're gonna have some vegetation to screen from the house across the street along the road, and then we're gonna put another run of plants between the building and the basin. Like I was discussing earlier, this is the average day filled up with water during a large storm event. The water will be several feet higher and overflow as shown on the plan. So that's really the sole purpose of that plan. Thank you.
And what kind of stormwater event, what's the maximum stormwater event? We've had some crazy ones lately, so.
It's a good segue, isn't it?
Good segue. We're going to talk about that in the next slide.
Okay, well, there we go.
So, as they kind of touched on earlier, there was some existing trees and things going on up there that have been removed. And as part of that, the DEC considers disturbance as soil being disturbed. So if you cut the trees and you leave them, with a stump, they don't consider that disturbance because the root structure is still there, the soil isn't moved, and it's not disturbed. So as part of that concern that some people had raised with this project, we went to the DEC and we prepared a SWIP. We put it in that box right there, which is right outside the site. We also did an initial report and submitted that to the DEC and asked for a permit, and they denied us a permit. They said you don't need it. So there's no permit needed because there's no disturbance. So they agreed with the assessment that the typical DEC says, and so like Matt had touched on earlier, we treated this like we had a permit. So we're inspecting it monthly, just like we would have had a DEC permit, just to make sure there's nothing detrimental going on up there. We had investigated pretty much all the way down from where this thing discharges right now. Joe, can you move that? Go right back to the site plan, actually, the enlarged one. There you go. Yeah, so that one's probably a good one to look at. So water comes down the hill, and water also comes down here from up here and travels down the road and actually comes onto our site. It doesn't stay on the road. So, and then there's a little culvert that goes under here that kind of half helps this little pond over here, but most of it stays on the site, which is probably why they got some wetlands in there. So it sits there, and then the only way out is there's a little, we've been calling it the pit. There's a little depression here, and it's got two pipes from underground. They're old clay tile pipes. One comes down this way and discharges open air into this little pit. The other one comes from here and comes down and also discharges into this pit. And then there's a little pipe end that goes under the road and then down the hill to this sediment pond that's down here. So we went down and inspected all that as part of our initial site investment, but this is the discharge point for the property. If it doesn't leave here, it doesn't leave. So what we've done is we took a look at all that stuff and taken all that into account and tried to make sure that we're being good stewards and monitor it all until we can get up there and start the project. So now if you want to go back. So we'll have to leave it there for a second. What we did was we analyzed all the storm water that comes down the hill and hits the site and leaves through this discharge point. And we mitigated it by installing a pond there. That pond is DEC compliant. There's a DEC stormwater design manual I'm sure you're all familiar with. And it's got a bunch of criteria in it. A lot of them, they give you a lot of options on how to treat stormwater. But if you don't have infiltration and that geotechnical testing that Matt talked about earlier that we had to clear all the trees to get up in there to do, yielded, there's no infiltration here. So the water doesn't go underground, it sits there, hence you have some wetlands up there. So what happens is that reduces the amount of options you have to treat it. Basically, we have to do a pond up here because you don't have infiltration, it's gonna hold water. So there's several components to this design, but the quantity and the quality portion get treated in this pond. And then reduce the runoff, and I'll let you go to that, I think it was the next one from where I started, that has that slide that has
The pond is fenced, by the way.
Right.
Doesn't have to be.
Reliability, yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be. The DEC, now curiously, the DEC says you don't need to fence the pond. It's not necessary for liability because what happens in that pond is at the regular water level. So, Scott showed on that one drawing where the blue line was, and it showed permanent water level. For the first 10 feet, so from here to the wall, it only drops a foot in depth. So if you were to say you're in a wheelchair and you're gonna end up falling down there, you pick your head up and you're not gonna drown, there's only a couple inches of water in there. So there's a way to get out or pull yourself out if you're, correct, right. So that's the DEC's rationale behind saying you don't need a fence. Now, they're gonna fence it and
I'm
it's.
thinking small children, but
Right,
yeah.
right. Some small kids, either way they can get out. So there's a safety bench, it's called the aquatic bench, but it's 1 foot deep. So this here, and you really can't see it, and I don't know if you can zoom in or out, but
We have it on.
I know what you've got, the numbers that are right there. The pond is sized to mitigate all the events all the way up to a 100-year storm event.
Okay.
And in fact, it will probably do more than the 100-year storm event. There's some fluff in there. It does not it doesn't really, if you can, this right here, I know what the number is. It's about 80-something CFS in a 100-year storm event, and it knocks the pond knocks that down to about 5. So you're reducing about 90% of the runoff that leaves the site in a 100-year storm event. And it's even better at the smaller events. So not only are you reducing the amount of runoff, but also the amount of runoff that carries sediment, heavy metals, and all kinds of other contaminants that might be as part of the stormwater runoff as part of being contributed to by impervious surfaces. So this pond does a pretty good job of not only knocking all that down, but it knocks down phosphorus and everything else, which is, I'm sure everybody knows in here, the lake over there is pretty concerned about harmful algal blooms. I'm working with Doug Willies and I'm getting some of that other stormwater stuff for a couple of the contributory waterways that get there. And this will do a ton for our site to benefit that lake by reducing those kinds of contaminants. In addition to this, there's also what's called runoff reduction and green infrastructure practices. We are incorporating several of those. They're all listed here, it's hard to read, but there's tree plantings, there's a vegetated swale, there's rooftop disconnect, there's porous pavement, and conservation of natural areas. So all of those things reduce the amount of runoff that leaves the site. We have a certain number we have to hit. There's a DEC minimum, it's 20% of the water quality volume. However, as part of the project and discussion with the project team, we are going to hit the entire water quality volume. So we're going over and above. The rooftop disconnect and the conservation of natural areas will treat that 20% on its own. So the addition of the porous pavement and the vegetated swale and the tree plantings, all those are over and above what the DEC manual requires. So we're providing a significant amount of additional treatment for the runoff leaving our site, as opposed to any site that the DEC would approve. Now, in addition to this, the DEC, we will disturb 5 acres of land. So we do have to have permission from the DEC to disturb more than 5 acres, which means they're going to review this SWIP. So we've already submitted to the DEC. They're not the quickest agency to get return fire from, but we have returned and we'll await their comments. They'll have some, some small ones, but there is an erosion control plan for this. And so if you want to go to the next one, Joe, so that's basically it on stormwater before I move to soils. Is there any other questions about any of the storm design that's going on up there?
No, that's good. I think the DEC's standards need to be increased.
They have
climate change, so
to be honest with you, they have that minimum, and in Onondaga County, where we do a lot of work, that region doesn't accept that minimum. They force you, they have a regional policy that forces you to actually meet the entire water quality, which is what we're doing here. So they are a little more stringent in there, and who knows what they'll do when they come out with a new manual here in the next year or so. At any rate, there's a soils chart, I think it's right here, and it's difficult to read, but there's no groundwater. The geotechnical report didn't find any groundwater. They found some perched water, but didn't find any groundwater. If you're gonna sink a well in there, it's well over 6 feet deep, and they did several borings all over the site, and you can probably take a look at those in the project set that you have, and that we'll be submitting to see where those are, but these are just the highlight of where that is.
I just want to, this slide here is about the 3 issues that the Board of Trustees asked us to go back and check before we get the special permit. And it was the impact on the land, and that was to find out where the groundwater was. And that's what Rudy was just talking about, that it was only perched water and the groundwater is well below the,
6 feet. I think it's 6.
It's 6, but it's 3 feet above.
For seeker, it needed to be within 3 feet of the finished grade. This is well below that. So that was one of the things that we found, and it was a positive reply or response to what we found. The next was the impact on the transportation. And as you can keep reading along, the village did hire a transportation expert consultant that came in and did a report for the village. So they hired them independently, that has nothing to do with our team, and some of those findings up here. But if you go back to this area here, this is Pastoral Associates, was the company who did the traffic, and there's no significant adverse traffic impacts because of the full development of the proposed project. So they made their own recommendations, but basically their main conclusion is that this project is not going to adversely affect the traffic. And then the third one was the impact on energy. Will we need to upgrade our substation, electrical substation? And so we had to track down NYSEG and our electrical and plumbing mechanical engineer, Greg from Sage Engineering. He did get a letter from NYSEG stating that after giving them all of the loads that are required for this development, that no impact on the substation will not have to be an increase or redo of any of the substations. So those were the three big items that we wanted to hit with this slide.
That's on water, right? No, Charles is going to touch on water real quick.
Yeah, but just before we get to that, on vehicular access, the Board of Trustees asked the applicant if it would be committed to widening Averill Road in front of the project, and the applicant is, if it's permitted to do so. So we're committed to doing that. We certainly have to repave the road because there's going to be some mechanical work outside, and if we're permitted to widen it, we will widen it. So, in front of the project.
Right.
Just real quick on the water, Scott's kind of, I won't go too much into it, more than Scott already has, he kind of touched on a lot of it already, but yeah, you can go to that next one, I guess.
I have a question here. The NYSEG letter states, in yellow highlighted, comprising a 24-unit apartment structure and 12 townhouse units will not require. How is the pumping of the water high up to the tower taken care of? Is that pulling out electricity and was NYSEG
It will
aware of that?
a little bit, yep. It's done down further, but yes.
So not on the same,
It's actually in the village, it's in, I can show you on the plan.
Can you go to the other plan?
Yeah, go to the first one, just for now, and then we'll go back, I like this one better for most of it.
Okay, because the pump station is well below the
So the pump station, where the water comes from, is right here. It's right by the parking lot. And those pumps in there are old and have to be controlled by the same sort of thing where if you go to a hotel and you want to use the hot tub, you got to twist the little knob so it stays on for a half an hour. That's how those pumps in that pump station down here are run. So every time the red light, the bat signal flashes down at the village DPW office and tells you that this tank is not full anymore, they got to run up there in a truck and turn the thing on and let the pumps go. So it's very antiquated. So as part of this project, those pumps will be replaced. And Bassett has volunteered to buy those on behalf of the village and provide some controls in this building down here. This tank that's right here is going to be removed and replaced by the tank that we put up here. So the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to get an additional water line from this point here up the hill and up to the tank. And then the tank will have a little bit of power, very little, because all you're going to have in there is a little relay that tells you what the water level in the tank is. And then down at the pumps and the control center, which is in the village already, is going to be.
Well, my question is about the substation. The substation, NYSEG didn't take into account, where are the pump stations pulling their pump from the same substation or another substation?
The pumps are in the same location they're in right now.
So the answer to your
So-
question, the
You
loads.
turn on the pumps and the
Yeah.
lights go out because it's overflowing, so that's what I wanna know, in other words, NYSEG, were they aware that there was gonna be
Yes.
also a new pumping system that goes higher up on the hill that might pull, to pump higher up, you're gonna need more juice, I mean, better pumps, right?
For the entire project, the loads were submitted
Yeah.
to NYSEG. That letter addresses this entire project, which includes the water tower and the pumping.
Our loads did include the pumping
Okay,
station.
okay, but NYSEG didn't say that in the letter, they
No,
don't
they
say
said,
that.
well, they analyzed what is provided by the mechanical, electrical engineer as far as loads, and then they advised us that a new substation or upgrade is not required for the full development of this project, which includes the water tower.
So it's so the word there is submitted load forms. We didn't give you the load forms. We can
Okay,
give those to you if you
okay.
want, but the load forms were based on the entire project.
Okay, well, that's the clarity I wanted here, okay.
Yeah, so those two new pumps, which will be down in the village, will pump and bypass the existing tank location. The existing tank will be gone, and then all this water will come up to this new tank, which will be 25,000 gallons larger. So you'll have additional capacity in here, and then you'll also have additional head pressure, if required. You'll require a couple of pressure reducing valves on the way down, so you got plenty of pressure already. But for this tank, will be up here. This blue will be the new water line easement, and then the yellow will be the new power easement. And then it'll have its own, obviously, we have our own entrance drive that'll come up and move up the hill so that whoever needs to maintain it will be able to get up there. And that, we tried to keep it, I think we got it at 6%, Seth?
8 to 9.
8%, I mean.
Spring is just like Springbrook's, which is
Yeah, so
7 to 9.
Yeah, so it's a driveway, a residential driveway in the middle range. Residential driveways can go up to 12% or so. This is, 8% or something. So that water system will significantly upgrade what we have now, George. And it also, importantly, has to be approved by the health department. So it'll be tested. We had a contractor, the project team asked me to provide the same contractor name and group that we used for Springbrooks tank. Springbrooks is a little different in that they take their water on the ground, they have their own water source. You guys have public waters. This one will be a little easier than Springbrook's, but Springbrook has, they got a 90,000 gallon tank, this one will be 100. And like we said earlier, it'll be code, so it's not gonna be taller than 30 feet. It'll be a little squattier property. Is there any questions on that?
So I apologize, I had the wrong PowerPoint up there before, so we're gonna kind of flash through the stuff that I've already gone through. And we're gonna get to the last slide, which is in your packet. It's the benefits that the project is going to, well, before that, we did have a mechanical, there's your charging stations there, the mechanical ventilation systems. They're gonna be air source heat pumps. Each apartment will be provided with a dedicated air source heat pump. We'll have outdoor energy recovery, and domestic hot water will also be air to water heat pump. So there's no gas gonna be brought up to these buildings, it's all just gonna be electricity. Here you go. That's gonna take this.
So this sheet, the design team, the owner put together for the benefit of the board of trustees and certainly the reviewing boards, benefits to the village and its residents. So insofar as your jurisdiction, we touched on many of these points, but number 5, the improvements to the road if we're permitted by easement, allowed to do that. The owners, if permitted by Spectrum here, cable? It is Spectrum. If we're going to try to convince them to allow us to bring high-speed internet up to that area for the village. New water tower and lines, which we've talked about, new water pumps and service lines, which Mr. Zona hit upon, improvements to the controls, number 9, extension of the sewer main up Rainbow Road to the project, new phase 3 power from NYSEG. And really, the important thing that we can't emphasize enough, so prior to the cutting of the trees, and in its current state, this project will significantly improve the water flow off the site insofar as water, reduction of water coming off the site and also treated. And I think that's what Mr. Zona wanted to emphasize here. So it's improved as far as stormwater runoff and whatnot. What's currently there. And some into the surrounding body. Any questions?
I think it was addressed and mentioned, but just to reconfirm, when I was up there in the early spring and the snow was melting, and you mentioned that water comes down the gravel road out of onto the site, and that's basically where most of all the water was going onto the site, was coming down the road that goes up to the pond. That water will then be channeled into your settlement, your pond?
Correct. We're gonna control all of it.
Okay, so it's not just the water that's on your site drainage off of roofs and
It's
roads.
everything that's
It's
in
what
the
water
watershed.
flows onto your site, is taken account of.
It's everything that's in the watershed. So if you drop a piece of water, a droplet of water at the top of the hill, if it comes to our site, we're handling it.
Okay, good. The other question I had is your trash collection, are they for, where a truck pulls up and picks up the entire thing and carries it away, or are they?
Dumpsters.
Again, the trash removal, it looks like a truck can pull up to them on your design.
The design intent is 1 unit for waste, 1 unit for recycling. The number and exact size of those will be worked out.
They're basically dumpsters.
I think what you're asking, they're not roll-off dumpsters where they haul them away, dump them, and bring them back. They dump them in place,
Yes.
set them back
Okay.
down, and then drive away with the truck, with the trash contained inside the truck.
Okay.
Sort of like what you have in the back of the
And it's a
farmer's
gate,
market.
you
like
open the gate, you
the-
remove it, and then when you're done, you shut the gate.
Okay, so they're not gonna be needing not exactly,
No,
roll off.
you don't have to
just
worry about
sit on-
trash up and down the road blowing out of an open
Okay.
dumpster container.
Okay.
So when Passero did their traffic study, is the traffic going to be routed so that it cannot go down into those tiny little cul-de-sacs like Rock Street and, you know what I'm talking about? You come.
The Cerro report, I think it's on file with the village, I mean, it's a.
Right, but my concern is that, the traffic going from this development directly to Main Street rather than through those neighborhoods where the turns are so tight, a lot of little kids, and, you come hopping out onto Main Street.
So the Cerro, again, I haven't read the
So
report
like
in a while, they have certain recommendations, they're in the report, and again, they're an independent traffic engineering firm out of Albany area that the village retained. So whatever's in that report, I refer to the board of trustees and whatnot as far as recommendations from that report. The important takeaway from our perspective is that last line, there's no significant impact on traffic. Whether there's going to be any routing or rerouting of traffic, I'll refer to the report.
So Jim, you're concerned that people would go on Rock Street rather than on Averill Road?
Well, yeah, I just find it hard to believe that there's no impact on traffic if, you've been up there, we've all been up there. There is really essentially no traffic through those little tiny blocks between, Averill Road and Main Street down by the parking lot by the credit union. nobody goes through there.
So in response to that, it's my understanding the Board of Trustees was gonna have the principal, Sarah, who prepared the report to answer any questions at any public hearing and whatnot. So that's,
It's just, if I was living there, I would be less than excited about, the Bassett buses and whatever else is going to be trying to get up there to
There won't
fix,
be buses.
no buses.
no shuttles. So, yeah, again, we're relying on that report as much as
Sure,
the village is,
sure.
and it's an independent report, and
It would be, it'd add a lot if it would just required, basically, to go down and make that turn onto Main Street, rather than go through those neighborhoods.
yeah, I think at the public hearing on the special use permit, I mean, that the public can show up and make that suggestion.
Yeah, that certainly could be a suggestion that it be, those roads might be marked local use only, sort of the way that upper Main Street is marked.
That's a signage issue, right?
But I personally it wouldn't even occur to me to drive in that direction, to get around it, but I
I'm
see
not
what you're
from the
saying.
area, I drove up around there and I went up to the site and I just went down that main street past
Yeah.
the hardware store on Main Street.
Those are good questions, I think,
Yeah.
you guys have paid for a traffic report, you should ask them.
I don't mean to put it off, I'm just, that's the
No, I mean,
report's
you guys got a great
report.
resource, that
Yeah.
Sarah, I think they do, I've heard of them before.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Chairman, did I understand at the beginning of the meeting, there was a motion for all three of the projects listed that we refer lead agency?
Yeah, lead agency, yeah.
We took care of
Thank
that.
you, I didn't quite hear it.
Yeah, we took care of that. All right, Gene, what's the next?
Does anybody have the application?
The seeker application,
No,
or the actual
that's
application?
the
Yes.
actual application. And it was Templeton Foundation. In the application provided,
This one.
yeah. Go to the next
Happy to
page.
share. As a tax.
The applicant provided its responses to the items that we have to review. So I think best served reviewing their responses and seeing where we agree or disagree.
All right. And the need. There is a need for workforce housing all throughout the village, not just for Bassett. So I think that's undisputed.
Adjacent land use,
Well,
the question there is, the proposed use must not be detrimental to its site or to adjacent parcels. The proposed use must be in such location, size, and character.
under number 2, I mean, I think that's a little bit debatable as far as the wooded parcels go, but that's been my thing, which was addressed the last time we had this meeting. So, it just, again, advance that. But I'm in the minority there.
Okay.
So these wooded parcels would not change here, right?
They won't change, depends on what you,
I know.
how you define change.
Right. I've only ever hiked in this direction. So,
And it is a permitted use, it's a permitted use within this district.
right.
Subject to special use permits.
Yeah, I'm not-
asking for a change of use.
Yeah, I'm not debating that.
So I would respectfully have a different opinion, but
We can agree to disagree.
we have in the past. So yes, I would agree with number 2. Location and size.
Location and size of use,
No problem.
Yeah,
problem?
yeah, I think it meets all of those requirements.
Okay, location, nature, size of buildings and structures. That's okay. All right.
Yep.
It hasn't been any changes.
Just find out.
And density of development,
The density of surrounding area, such as lot size, must maintain the character of the zoning district in which it is proposed. It is low density in relation to the size of the parcel, I think. But in relation to the others around it, it's not entirely maintaining the character. If we're talking the entire zoning district, then yes, it maintains the character, as opposed to just that neighborhood.
The entire property, this follows the theory of, instead of covering the whole place with little
Oh, sure.
things,
Yeah.
we're
I'm
putting it
just-
all, leaving the rest, that's so that.
And I'm just reading it as maintaining the character of the zoning district, and the R1, whatever, conservation district is fairly large, so, you know.
But this is well beyond that, so
Yeah.
there's no problem.
Vehicle access and circulation. I think the provisions are well thought out.
Pedestrians.
Pedestrian, traffic, access and circulation, there's not gonna be a sidewalk off-site, right? Is there gonna be a sidewalk, because there isn't a sidewalk in April Road to begin with. Anywhere.
And I think if you look at the Passero report, they looked at that, and there are some physical challenges to putting a sidewalk.
No, I understand, I just don't think there's one to connect to on April Road now.
No.
Okay. Parking. What's the occupancy of this for, I mean, if every bedroom?
R2, for
For-
New York State code is an R2 occupancy, is residential too, is an.
No, I know that, but I mean, what would be the number of bodies? That's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
it's total is 36 units.
Right,
So-
but number of residents, if it was fully occupied.
how many bedrooms?
Yeah,
Oh, how many bedrooms we have?
48.
Well, hang on.
If that's 60 bedrooms,
like how many people will be housed in this place?
well, that's.
I mean, I would argue that 75 parking spaces is more than adequate, just given that our village is compact in nature. But I just want to make sure we know if it's fully occupied, what are the bodies that are occupying the site?
Yeah, he said so.
Well, I'm just gonna say, worst case scenario, they're all adults, they're all drivers, you know, so.
If 68 bedrooms.
68 bedrooms, so some of them, you know, could be double occupied. So it'd be maybe 90 if everybody was a couple. Okay. Okay. I think that is an adequate part. With 68 bedrooms, some of them will have one person.
I'm okay with the layout.
Yeah, the layout, I think, is sensitively cited. Drainage facilities.
And they are now.
Yeah. I mean, I think the retention pond will go a long way toward solving that issue,
As
yeah.
far as number 10 goes, sort of above and beyond.
Mhm.
I don't know what more you can do with 11.
Well, the landscape plan will have the specific plantings, you know, the kinds and species and everything, but, and we will review the landscape plan as it comes, yeah,
The same with the lighting.
yeah. All right, then, water and sewer. Okay. So I think that's good. Emergency access is there, it's been, the fire department's been consulted. Lighting has been addressed in here as well. Noise or odors, okay. Okay.
Okay.
So, the only concern was adjacent land uses, if you remember.
It's ironic that people complain about building an apartment house on a street in the village where there's built homes around it, because that's too dense. And now there have been complaints that this shouldn't be built because it's out in the woods someplace. And,
Changes.
there are no houses around it, so it's not compatible with you know.
There are houses around it, but the neighbors who live on April Road would disagree, so.
Not all around it, not on three.
Not like Chestnut Street, but yes.
I think I objected to both,
So, you know,
it's not consistent.
So either, you know, you're in a village. You live in a village. That's where people live, you know.
Before we take a vote, is this consensus to approve this with noting that there was a concern by one member about adjacent land uses?
I think that would be, I'd be willing to make that motion.
Okay.
So I make the motion that we approve it to, you know, or recommend it to the board for consideration for the special use permit, noting that there was some concern by one member that it was not compatible with adjacent land uses. Get that, Mark?
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You want to say all opposed? I mean,
All in favor?
no, because, yeah,
Yeah, one opposite.
one opposed. And, yeah, sorry.
Does anybody foresee the need for additional experts beyond what the village can handle? The department.
The only consideration I would have, just to, you know, dot our i's and cross our t's, is an independent engineer to evaluate the stormwater plan, considering that that's been a contention. I think we want to make sure everything is correct, but that's up to the board, to the trustees. They can decide they don't want to do that. But that's the only area where I think there's been some concern, and
Can I
so,
offer one other, just,
I'm not questioning your.
no, I was gonna offer a thought to the board, that in addition, if the board didn't want to, do that, a reminder that the DEC is going to be reviewing this.
Right.
They have to.
Well, and
It's over 5 acres.
that's up to the trustees to decide. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's the one area where there is concern, because there is a lot of
Sure.
water
There
that
is another
comes off
layer,
that.
I guess is where I'm.
Right, no, I know, I'm just, trying to dot i's and cross t's.
Do you want that as a motion for?
Yeah, I would make a motion to recommend that the village consider possibly engaging an independent engineer, if they're not happy with the DEC level of review, to ensure that the stormwater prevention plan will address the concerns that the community has raised in the past.
And I'll second that. Marcia, do you have it?
It came up, I just was having trouble figuring out where I was gonna put that on my.
And it's really more just to make sure that we've done our due diligence, so the trustees can decide that it's not required.
All in
Trust the
favor?
trustees.
All in favor? Oh,
Again.
did you hear the motion?
Okay,
I have two.
oh well, I tried.
What was that? What was the vote?
He opposed.
And,
Yeah.
okay, and what was the?
I'm in favor.
Okay, so 3 in favor, 2
Is
opposed.
Kathy not voting tonight?
No,
No, I'm sorry, Kathy.
Is there anything else that anyone wants to say about the application?
No, I mean, I think it's been, I appreciate the large format, so we can actually read it.
And there's a large set there for the.
An even bigger set, okay. No, I appreciate this size, it makes it easier to read. No, next steps.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Third.
All in favor? We're adjourned at
We
6:20.
didn't do the minutes.
Oh, the minutes, Gene, we have to reopen the meeting.
We
can't get it out.
Sorry, we're reopen the meeting?
Yeah. It's for the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
The motion to adjourn has been withdrawn because we have to approve the minutes. So I reviewed the minutes. May I make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstained, I wasn't here, so.
Okay. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6:24.
Thank you.